And good morning, everyone. All about the gyro here, and we got release notes and schedule. So I'm going to break it up into two videos. Hope all of you are well here from Nashville. So in this first video we're going to talk about what they have changed and how it will impact our season preparation. So they've hyped a lot about all the content they brought in. As you see on the screen, the new Delara collaboration, I think that's going to go gangbusters. The new Huracan is confirmed for the release. Also, Long Beach for road. So, a few other circuits for rallycross and dirt. Cedar Lake is the dirt ad. Pardon me. Cross license racing. So, your license is now based on the track, regardless of what series you're in. So, for example, if you are in Formula Sprint and you race on USA International, it's your oval license that's affected, not your road. So we'll see how that plays out. The new AI content looked interesting. A lot of value adds. The custom competitive setups for a lot of vehicles. I think Tanner McAuliffe was directly involved in that. That's going to be very interesting because now the threshold between your paid shops and now these customs may be narrowing. So I'll be very curious to see how that plays out. And some stuff relating to the tires and damage model. So they have some iRacing UI stuff. As we know, the beta UI is still broke on my machine. So I'm hoping somehow they have fixed this. And they're going through all the UI stuff. So here's the 3D car viewer. I kind of like this idea. And you can see a full-blown uh, schematic of the car in 3 dimensions. New paint shop sponsor, Apex, Turn, and Sin Labs. So those are value adds. Don't know if others have gone away. We'll find out. And the member site, the gift cards are now back. And now we're getting to the meat of everything. So simulation, so they fixed a glitch where there were often penalties for passing under a yellow flag. And it normally affected oval where that would happen. And the pit exit delay, that was a common thing too. I didn't see that as much in road as I saw on oval. And then this game time penalties were, quote, astronomically miscalculated. Like there are some I saw, I think were like 7-second penalties. Now, the track surface model, there's a very key note in this to me. And that is, in general, the track should retain more heat energy from cars. So I'm expecting the tracks to be more slick. And because I tend to drive more on the smooth side, sometimes to the detriment, because almost at times there's too much grip, this may benefit me. So let's talk about the AI racing. So they've added to the LMP2 in the 3 trucks for AI racing. They've added both Imola and Interlagos for AI racing. They've changed the skill performance, which I like. And there are all these classes that the AI has done. And now let's look at what the specialized training is. So the F3, which is very popular, Global Mazda MX-5 Cup, that's the rookie class, the Indy Pro car, the Porsche GT3, Skip Barber, and the Jetta. So very nice assortment of cars, lots of variety in that. Very happy about that. Additional driver training, the Oval Atlanta, Chicagoland Speedway, then Road Atlanta, Summit Point, and Tsukuba. Probably a good thing. And you see where they've improved the Xfinity cars and the Cup Series cars for vehicle properties. Now, one of the very big things, tires. A new tire spec has been applied. So in my mind, you might as well just call this new tire model number 8. So reading this statement, and I'm going to read it for those who have visual impairment. This adjustment corrects issues with grip at the contact patch and alleviates issues with low load spike correction, where the vehicle could bounce around. So, in other words, it sounds like the tires are less quote unquote springy. If you notice here, it's all of your fast cars. Now, note the Ford GT3 and GTE is on this list. Maybe sticking around another season. So, the Aston Martin, not yet in circulation. But all of them are very popular cars. So, they got the rookie class in. The new Huracan, which I think is going to go gangbusters. The rough street stock as well. The Jetta and the old Williams. And they also put it in Legacy, which I found very interesting. So stock car tires, so they're making the car a little bit easier to drive over the limit because there's going to be a lot of road racing in stock cars in real life. And also the stock cars with aero. Now, this one right here is, I think, one of the big game changers. How will VRS, PDS, CSS, as in Virtual Racing School, Pure Driving School, Craig Setup Shop, and others, now compete? They have created many brand new sets of custom built setups for each of the official races within that series. Now, what iRacing has done is has said, okay, we see a problem. I think this was clearly done for customer retention. Remember, a lot of people went to sim racing for the year-long subscription in what is 20 S4. Now or correction, 20 S1. We're now in 21 S1. This is a retention tool. A very smart retention tool because now you're saying, look, we're now going to help you out in the setup because we want you to race more competitively. Created by iRacers, including DWC drivers, also well-respected community setup builders. So Tanner McAuliffe, who does setups for iRacing on Discord, I think he is directly involved in this. And I like the fact that they use the notes page to give parameter adjustment recommendations. This is a game changer because now you have more than one big option. And if these competitive setups are good, if they are suitable, what is the impact going to be to the custom setup people? that are a paid for service. Like I paid for Craig's Setup Shop, they are fantastic. I have had only one big issue on the Porsche. Otherwise, they've been a delight to drive and they will still get my patronage. But I can't ignore this in terms of what the goals are for 21S1. Now, track specific setups. This is an extensive list. So you have the NASCARs, but you also have the IR01, the F3, the R18 LMP1, as aforementioned NASCARs, and the Porsche 919 LMP1, and then your super late model in Silver Crown. So this is track specific custom competitive setups. Then they follow it up with custom competitive setups. And now look at all of these cars. It's all the GT3s, all the GTEs, LMP2. So clearly, this is not only a response to the increase in popularity with ACC, but now they're trying to improve the racing. And as aforementioned, customer retention. I'm very impressed with this release, just on the setups part alone. New damage model. So here's the thing that they've added to the damage model, and I'm reading this now for the first time. I had read most of it prior to start of recording. There's a half a second delay. So I'm wondering if they're trying to help solve some of the netcode issues, some of the modeling issues, especially when you have so many different computers and configurations and operating systems and statuses thereof. I'm very curious how this is going to play out. Now, I like this particular statement. Colliding with detached car parts or tires no longer cause penalties to either the victim of the debris or the source during or after. So, I like that you're not getting the double whammy of you get a 4x for car contact and you get a broken car. Instead, they're basically saying, look, it's not your fault if you happen to run into this. And they're taking away the 4x. I like this change. This screams fairness to me. Now, collision polygons. I'm curious to see how this will play out. New algorithms for repair to prevent unauthorized moon launches and provide a more accurate damage state. I'll be curious to see how that plays out as well. The center springs and torsions bar now break, along with that particular spring and damper. Nice. Repairing a damaged spring or damper. Nice. And, they've changed the wheel tethers. So the rest of it you can read for yourself. But I am very curious to see how this damage model is. I'm very happy to see they're trying to improve the damage models. So you have a new tire spec and a new damage model, and you have custom setups. Already, I'm getting a lot of value for my membership. Now, I do know from reading the back third of this document, there's some interesting changes to the cars themselves. Pit stop, yeah, minor things. Rendering, lighting, etc. Audio. So all the NASCAR vehicles got a new sound file. All right, let's look at the cars. And the first one I want to talk about is the Audi R8. So with the Huracan confirmed, they are the same car basically. There's very little difference. So I think setups are going to be transferable for the most part between these two cars. That's the first thing. Now, I have not looked at the master schedule yet to see what cars are coming in and what are going out, but surely the Huracan is coming into IMSA. So they've tweaked the car physics, and I like that they put this statement in. And that is, they've been tested extensively against the rest of the class. Clearly, this is a tacit acknowledgement that the Audi has been at times OP, especially in IMSA. When they changed the Merc mid-season, that car went from completely undrivable to okay, it's passable. Shift lights have been moved up 200 RPM. They put a glass panel on it, so we'll have to see how shiny that gets. But I'm very curious to see how that looks and feels. All right, let's talk about the M4 GT4. So, Michelin Pilot Challenge is on my radar, and you have the Porsche and the BMW for that. They've adjusted the aero and the fueling rate. Now, notice they didn't say up or down. They just said adjusted. I don't know how to read that. Put it that way. M8 doesn't get anything, they just get setups. The C8R, you can no longer adjust the packer heights. They have to be fixed. Let's talk about the F3. Now, I don't race the F3, but I know a lot of folks that do. So, increasing the tires to 60 Celsius when they start, and they've increased the minimum air pressure. So, clearly, they're trying to address the first two laps of a race. A lot of chaos in F3 when that happens. They've reduced the ride height. Now, the IR01, they've talked about the fact you get multiple tires. And they also made sure the IR18 was taken care of. So whatever tire you use during quali, you have to use to start the race, which I really, really like. I like this statement here. If the engine gets too hot, you'll start losing horsepower. They've improved the fuel consumption, so now you can have a fuel strategy that, if you do the Alexandra Rossi strategy of trying to slow pedal it to the end, it may actually work. Now, I don't see that here in the IR01, but that's in keeping with they want a little bit less gadgetry in it. And as you see, they've updated the aero and fuel maps and all that. All right, let's talk about the LMP2. New tire spec, new fuel rate increase, nice, but nothing else. I'll be curious to see how the setups evolve. Dirt modifies, I think, going to be huge. Now, let's talk about the Ferrari 488 GT3. This one, when I read it, I went, wow, they did a lot of changes. The 488 GT3 has always been the safe car. It turns reasonably well. It's just a reasonable car, but in terms of BOP, it was struggling a little bit. They did a lot of BOP work in this Ferrari. A little bit more power, but they've also changed a lot of other things. The aero, ride heights. I'm really curious to see if this is still the safe GT3 when it's all said and done. I'm very curious to see because they have changed a lot of things on that car. It'll be like driving a new car. Note that the rear wing has been narrowed, the adjustment range. So I think it was 12 degrees on the Ferrari, or was it 9? I don't remember offhand. I don't drive it very much. But narrowing it, that will be interesting. The 480 GT3, they haven't changed anything. So, Kurt, you're going to be very happy. Now, same thing for the Ford GT GT3. This has been very interesting. It looks like its CG has been raised, but they've dropped the vehicle weight, but they've increased a little bit of drag. Maybe they're making this car a little bit easier to drive. The fact that it's still here is interesting in itself. Maybe there's enough participation. They have also changed suspension geometry, downshift. Like they have really put in some work. Major updates. Now, does this mean that Ford is thinking about GT3 with all this work? Who knows? They also did change the shift lights. So very curious to see how this comes to pass. No changes in the GTE for Ford. The Mazda gets some new in-car sound, so I'll be curious to see how that is. All right, let's look at the Huracan. 5.2 liter V10 is a power plant. Custom setups. Remember, they've been tested, the BOP versus, and I think that's why you're seeing the Ferrari change and the Ford GT3 change. I'll be curious to see about the other GT3s because I did not see a Z4 in this list yet. Keep that in mind. All right, moving on. Okay, now is that the McLaren? Okay, so the McLaren, which I just got recently, and it's an interesting car to drive. So a little bit more drag, a little bit more power. Same thing as the Ferrari, fuel wing and CG. So it looks like most of the GT3 cars, the CG's gone up. McLaren has just a little bit of increased aero drag, but suspension geometry with additional anti-dive. So I suspect that under hard braking, the front end was dropping down too much, which I did notice at Silverstone. But major changes in the McLaren GT3 car. All right, let's talk about our beloved Merc GT3. Same thing as the 488 GT3 and the Ford GT3, but here they've been a little bit more specific. They've admitted the fuel economy needed to be improved. They've done that. They've changed to aero. It's the overall drag has been increased. So that makes sense because the Merc in a straight line, like at Coda when we drove it, it was noticeably quicker than the Audi. Noticeably. So, but they've also given it a little bit of power. So, very curious to see how that plays out. But they've made some changes to that car. I expect that to be good. And you see all the NASCAR stuff. So if you're a NASCAR person, remember all these release notes are on the forums now. So you can read it. They're actually putting those notes out before the patch. Let's talk about the Porsche. So the Cayman 718, they only changed the branding. They didn't change anything else. Thank you very much. I like knowing that I don't have to change very much in setups. The Porsche GT3 Cup car, notice the second statement. Much less aerodynamic downforce. That will be a brand new car with the tire spec. In the 911 RSR, notice no new tire spec. They just going to change the setup. That means I'm pretty happy with the car that I'm going to be predominantly driving. And as you see, the rest of it, they've adjusted the Williams, and now they have the legacy stuff that they've added. Let's talk circuits here as we conclude. Grand Prix circuit, couple bumps in the road surface, nice. Branch Hatch has a new rallycross to it. Homestead Miami has safer barriers. They've updated that, which is nice. And what I'm looking at is any other. So Long Beach, the big change of Long Beach. I'm very curious to see how that's going to go. And there you go. Those are all the notes fit the print. So the big things for me, new tire spec on many cars. Ours not affected. They did make a change in the BMW M4. I did note no Z4 in this list. Curious. So that's it for now. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to look at the schedule and do a second video later today. Take care, everybody.